Hello, everyone. Today we are pretty excited to introduce you to one of our partners for my company and a good way for you to diversify your portfolio and grow revenues in a different channel. I have with us Nick Duckwall with Escargot, COO, co founder. Nick, tell us something about yourself and then we will get into your product and maybe a demo that you can show us what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Franco, for having me. I have been in the battery rental technology for almost 4 years now, and this technology is extremely exciting. I wish I could say that this is an idea that I conjured up and I created, but the reality is this technology was created well over 10 years ago over in Asia, specifically in China. The IP is over there. And what we saw was that um, over over about course of 5 to 7 years, it started gaining in popularity. And like a lot of technology, it's a little slow to come to the States, but now it's rapidly entering the US market. And that's why I'm excited to speak to you about this and introduce this technology to your listeners, because there's a real opportunity for them to open up their portfolio. I know that a lot of people are specifically in the ATM industry. However, you know there's a way for them to open up their portfolio a little bit, look at it and say, okay, let's identify some locations that might benefit them in placing our technology and generating truly a passive income, which I'll get to a little later on. But when I say passive income, it's a little different from like vending machines and ATM machines, where they say it's passive, but the busier the location, the more often you have to visit, right? And so it becomes a full-on, full-time job. Well, with this technology, because it's not a single point transaction where you go to an ATM or vending machine, you just need to go there one time, get the money, and you're done. With our technology, it's 2 points of contact. You rent and then you return. So as we dive deeper into this conversation, I'm happy to go into this further.
I think it will be nice for you to show me that little commercial that you have of what it is, so then we can tell people how it looks, and then we can have some questions.
Absolutely. So if you can see my screen now, I'll kind of just walk you through it. But the idea is, when people need to charge their phone, instead of looking for a charging cable and being tethered next to a wall or carrying around a power bank, what if, just like you go to an ATM to get cash, what if you could just go up to a machine? Think of it as almost like a vending machine, where you can just come here, scan the QR code, and an all in one portable charger comes out,
And you're out the door.
and then you're out the door. Now, what,
And the
what you're
same.
looking at is this battery that has all the cables that you need. You have the USB-C, you have the USB Lightning, and the micro USB. And so it's truly an all-in-one battery. And here's the best part about our technology is that not only as a user are you not tethered to a wall outlet using a charging cable, you're not even tethered to that machine. You can take this battery, you can either return it there or drop it off at the next location. So imagine the power of having a network of these kiosks, maybe in a city, throughout the state, or even our ultimate goal is to have this nationwide where it's ubiquitous.
So as an ATM operator, I'm always looking for additional products to offer to my fleet of business. How do you think this can adapt to it? What kind of placements I should be looking at or thinking when we're talking about this technology?
Yeah, so the exciting thing about this technology is that, and I have always asked ATM operators, if you could go back 30 years, right? 20, 30 years ago, when you could buy your own ATM machines and place it out into the wild and generate revenue from it, what kind of locations you would go after, right? You could get the best locations. You could sit back now and just collect the cash, right? Well, as the ATM market's been flooded, all of these top locations have already been taken. So if anyone new that's coming in, they're kind of picking from very sparse locations, right? Well, the exciting thing about our technology is that we're at the uh, frontier stage of this tech space. Okay. So for the next 10, 20, 30 years, imagine if you can get the best locations now and just truly sit back and generate the revenue from that before everybody else jumps in. And I think that, for your listeners and viewers, once they understand this technology, how easy it is to own and operate it, it's just going to be a no-brainer for them to add to their current portfolio.
So I have businesses all over the U.S. and here in Colorado. I think your commercial looked like a hospital, like an ER clinic. Is that a good placement? Are we looking at convenience stores? Are we looking at bars? What are we looking at here? Because I want to maximize my relationships.
Yeah, so let me share with you. So at this current stage of this tech space, um, what we're seeing, the immediate results are in locations that are highly trafficked, right? Like hospitals, destination hotels, busy bars, and restaurants. Not so much locations where a lot of ATM operators are currently in, which are convenience stores and yeah, C
A
stores.
grocery store.
Exactly, right? Like that will essentially come in phase two, phase three as this technology grows. But what we do know is that if it's placed in a high traffic area where people are lounging and hanging out for a period of time, the usage there already, we're seeing some locations where you're reaching your ROI in under 12 months. Now, I've spoken with many ATM operators where they say, you know what, if I can reach it in 18 months, then you're happy, right?
The
Well,
happy 18, I call it.
yeah. So here's the crazy thing is that this technology, even though it's already brand new and less than 1% of the population knows about this, when placed in a high trafficked area, you are already meeting that threshold of 18 months, if not way sooner. And what I'll do is in a moment, we'll go through some of the data that I've collected to kind of show, that the proof is in the pudding, right? But just to kind of quickly go over this information here, what we saw over in China again was around mid to early 2010s. There was a little bit of a placement throughout the country, but over the course of 5 to 7 years, by 2020, um, this technology hit critical mass in China. And then after that, it started going over into South Korea, Japan, Europe, and then also over here to the States. But like a lot of times when it comes to technology, it's a little slow to cross the pond. But once it's here and people understand it and want it, everybody wants to have it yesterday. And that's why I'm so excited to be in this tech space. And just to give you a quick story about a couple of my misses was that just to kind of age myself, back in the early 2000s, I was in college working for Circuit City, and I remember when those phones came out where we could take a picture and have that as our phone cover. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
Well, I thought, and everybody thought, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But what I found out was that those were actually refurbished old phones from East Asia. And what they were doing is what they were getting ready to do was getting into video recording on their phones. And at that time, I couldn't even just understand why that was even how that was even possible, right? We were just getting into a cell phone where you can take a picture and put it on your phone as like a
A background.
yeah, and we thought that was the greatest thing, and yet we were already years behind. And I think it's the same idea with this technology, is that this technology is already ubiquitous overseas, right? And so before everybody jumps into this, the early adopters are the ones that are going to benefit the most by um, gobbling up the best locations, like the hospitals and like the destination hotels and bars. And right now, currently, less than 1% of locations across the country that need this currently have it, all right, or have some kind of charging solution, right? For the most part, the solution to when you need this is, hey, bartender, can you charge my phone? Can you hold on to my $1,000 phone and then give it back to me when I need it? Well, first of all, that's annoying for them, right? And secondly, more importantly, that's a very valuable piece of equipment that you have that you're giving somebody else to hold on to in a busy environment. But What if you could pay for that peace of mind by just paying two, three, $4 for an hour to charge up your phone, right? You're already paying a ton of money for an overpriced Bud Light, right? Well, for just a few dollars, you can charge up your phone, which is literally, for the vast majority of us, the most valuable and most expensive thing that we have on ourselves at all times.
Yeah, I think I think we are right at the beginning of this opportunity in America, and it's one of those that we need to embrace to ride the wave.
Yeah, and not just ride the wave, create that wave, right? Be the early adopter, be the initiator of this technology. And the ones that I have currently partnered up with, and I'm not gonna blow smoke here and say, oh, every location is gonna be fantastic, and you should put it in every location. No, I generally, when I speak with operators, I will let them know, hey, this location right now, this is what your expected ROI time frame can be. In this other place, I would just completely avoid, because I want our operators to be successful right off the bat. Because if they're not, they're not going to want to get back into it, or they may just say, "Oh, tell other people it's not worth it," right? But that's where that communication between the operator and myself is, that I will be very, very blunt with them and tell them, yeah, your idea of this location isn't good for now. It has potential, or I may just say it probably never would do well.
Yeah, I think we talked in the beginning for you to give us some examples, or we talked offline for you to give us some examples of what is an ATM operator producing on these. And we don't have to go into the details, but just knowing that they're making an X amount of money. I have a few of these, and in summertime, and some of my amusement parks are doing great, up to the $1,000 a month. Uh,
Yeah.
and this is
So
just with 3 units. Or
yeah. So as far as the current locations are concerned, what I would say is that, for me, the number one location that we go after are hospitals, right? Hospitals, especially the emergency rooms. People are sitting there waiting hours to see the doctor, and having and to be able to stay connected through their phone with their friends and family, or just keep themselves entertained. That's where we're seeing a ton of usage. So that's, for me, my number one target. If I ever speak with any kind of ATM operator, or just anyone that has a relationship with a hospital, I tell them, give me, give me. If you don't want it, I'll take it, right? But
yeah,
you'd be crazy not to own and operate it yourself. Now, aside from hospitals, destination hotels, right? Hotels around amusement parks, hotels around beaches, where people are just there for a few days and really not hanging out at the hotel, but going out and exploring the city that they're visiting. What they'll do is they'll grab a battery, and we'll just charge a daily rate, and they'll take it with them and use it when they need it, and then return it at the end of it, right? And then, as far as bars and restaurants, typically I will say that they are what I call a network builder, right? You've got your anchor points like the hotels and the hospitals and maybe even universities and ultimately airports. But bars and restaurants are, I, I would just call them network builders, something to put around your anchor point. Now, and it's just going to generate, you know, couple rentals a day or maybe every couple days. But here's the crazy thing: if you're in a good, busy bar, a happening place, it's going to do tremendous, like nightclubs or bars that people hang out all the time. And I can say right now that our busiest location in the country is a very busy big bar. It's a honky tonk bar, and to my surprise, it has been my number one producing locations. But for the most part, if you want steady revenue, recurring revenue, where you know you're going to hit that benchmark of reaching that ROI in 12 to 18 months, hospitals all day long, destination hotels all day long. If you get that great bar, I mean, that's going to just, it's a, I wouldn't say it's an anomaly, but they're not as guaranteed as hospitals and destination hotels. So I'm certainly not trying to say don't go after bars and restaurants, but based on cost to revenue ratio, depending on the size of the kiosk you get, if you put it into some mom and pop bar and you just buy one of the little kiosks that we offer, you may not make that much. You might make 30, 40, $50 a month, but for the low cost of that kiosk, you're still hitting that ROI of 12 to 18 months, which is ultimately my goal for everybody, if not faster. And here's the thing, if I already have locations based on the fact that this is a brand new technology, if we're already having locations that are reaching it in under 12 months or in 18 months, imagine when this technology becomes more ubiquitous, right? Then it's just gonna more people are gonna start seeking it out, and the revenue from that should start increasing exponentially.
Question for you, Nick, would be: Do you are you afraid that they might change the ports on the charger on the phones?
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. So the EU a few years ago told Apple, look, if you don't standardize your cable, instead of keep constantly changing it out, we're going to kick you out. And so
Oh,
remember, iPhone 14 and below were using USB Lightning, right? Ever since
yes.
iPhone 15 came out, they're now using USB-C. I, for one, will say that the Lightning is much faster. When people use our batteries to charge their phones, it's typically using a Lightning cable. You're getting about 1.2% power for every single minute. With a USB-C cable, you're really only getting anywhere between zero point 0.8 to 0.9% for every minute. However, at least it's standard now for Apple. I don't see Apple changing out of the USB-C anytime in the near future because they don't want to lose that EU business, right? Now, if it does, that's not a problem. We can always pivot and add the new batteries to, or the new charging cables to these batteries.
That's excellent. And in the way that we operate ATMs, we operate them on multiple ways. And one of them is the merchant wants to buy the equipment. Another one is that we place our equipment in there. In your case, how do you suggest the model to be?
Honestly, I just say the model that you guys are using with the ATMs. Own the ATM and generate the revenue from that for years to come. If you speak to a merchant and they say, well, you know what, we want to own and operate this ourselves. Yeah, there might be a little bit of a margin that you can make from that quick sell, but for the long term, I think it would behoove every operator to own their own kiosk. Think of it as the future of ATM machines, only in these portable chargers. All you're doing is you're monetizing the time that people need to recharge, right? There's a gap between the amount of battery power that comes in your typical iPhone or Samsung or whatever it is and your daily need. And I always hear people say, well, every year the batteries are coming out stronger and faster and better. And, that's what Apple says and that's what Samsung says. And then I always tell them, I was like, well, what happens when they raise that battery power, right? When they raise the processing power of the smartphones. Well, all of the apps that you have downloaded onto your phone, they also get stronger. They also get more powerful, and it also drains your battery even more. So it's a constant, cat and mouse game of, okay, we've just raised the power capacity for these new smartphones, and then the apps are like, great, we're just going to raise the capacity for our apps. And so there's always going to be that little bit of a gap. And that's where this, rent and return model comes in to be able to fill that, 3,000 milliamp um, uh, gap that majority of the users every single day experience. Because I don't know about you, but I have to charge my phone like at least once or twice now. Luckily I've upgraded to the newest iPhone, and so it's been a little bit stronger. But I'll tell you what, my iPhone 15 after the first year, it just dropped dramatically. I don't know if that conspiracy that iPhones are
Drain
programmed
battery.
to decrease in battery power afterwards so that people upgrade. I don't know if it's true. I'm not going to accuse anything, but it sure seems like it. And even now with my iPhone 17, I'm already seeing that I'm having to recharge more again. So
And
yeah,
since you mentioned a brand, this these chargers are independent for an Apple and an Android. That should not make it.
exactly. I mean, every single smartphone that's out in the market right now use one of three charging cables. The iPhone the USB Lightning, USB-C, or the micro USB-C. So that's what these are all here. And if anything ever changes, we will obviously always pivot. And here's the thing, and not to get ahead of myself and get into the business model so much, is that we always provide our batteries free of charge to the operators. Okay, when you purchase the kiosk and place it somewhere, that's your kiosk. However, the batteries that come with it, that's all part of the Escargo network. So imagine, frankly, you've got it in location X, and I rent a battery from there, and I rent it for two hours, right? And great, you're happy. You made $3, $4, $5 from that. However, I take that battery and I take it down the street and I drop it off at the next operator kiosk, right? Well, you're down a battery. Does that mean that you have to purchase a new battery, even though you made $3 or $4? Well, you don't want to pay $20 for a new battery, right? And so, with our business model, the way we see it is that we're all part of the Escargo network. Every operator who owns their kiosk, they're part of the Escargo network. And so, if your batteries go downstream somewhere, or it just doesn't get returned, we will always send you more batteries free of charge. So it's really just a one-time purchase for the operators.
That's excellent. And you also mentioned too that you're not just receiving revenue from the rental; that there's other potential ways to receive revenue.
Absolutely. So, I know that advertising screens is the big. I don't want to use the word fad, but like it's like the extra revenue. You guys put ATM toppers, screens on toppers and stuff, and a lot of them are done through some programmatic advertising aspect, right? And it's very little that, for the most part, from what I've heard from a lot of people, is that you're not generating that much revenue, right? Well, for our kiosk, we have actually partnered up with a large media group, and they're going to be, purchasing and placing our kiosks throughout their whole network. However, we've come to agreement that all of the kiosks that are in our network, not in theirs, they're also wanting to sell ads to those screens. So if you've got 100 bars and we have a relationship, or they have a relationship with one of the largest liquor distributors in the country, well, now I can go to you, Franco, and say, hey, would you be okay if we put this ad on that screen? Yes. Well, based on the screen size, this is how much they're able to pay you, right? The media company is always going to get their big chunk of it. And then the remainder, because it's your screen, you could always say no. They're going to want to incentivize it and make it so that way it behooves you to put that ad onto that screen. And so, yes, that's another way for you all or for operators to generate additional revenue. And so that's something that we're actively working towards, to making sure that while this rental technology catches up with consumer demand, in the meanwhile, what we want to do is expedite that rental, or your revenue, your ROI, through ad sales.
And I guess just to go back to numbers and just to be very clear with the listeners and ATM operators, you have multiple machines with different sizes. Let's say an 8 unit. Uh, an 8 unit. Where would you put an 8 unit at? What would be the best place to put an 8 unit?
Yeah, so that's where I would consider a network builder, right? You put it around your anchor points. And so these are locations that are going to help accentuate that location that you have, like whether it's the hospital or a hospital group or a hotel. Those little 8 batteries are great for the small bars around that area where people are hanging out. Doesn't take up a lot of space. You can put it on a bar countertop, or you can put it on one of the stands that we offer. It helps to kind of like drive more eyeballs to your kiosk because of the stand, just displaying what it is. So I would focus on 8 batteries on the little bars and restaurants in an area. Now,
This
tied to that is by putting an 8 battery. If you were to try to say, okay, well, what if I just spent a little bit of, I just want to tiptoe my way into this tech space. So I have a great location like a hospital or like a huge bar, but I want to just kind of like test the market. And so I want to put the 8 battery in there. I'm going to tell you right away. And I tell this to people all of the time, don't bother, because you're wasting your time, because it's going to get drowned out by the environment. The sheer size of most locations are going to drown out a little kiosk, right, that has a 10-inch screen. And people don't know what they don't know. So when they see that little machine with a screen just showing how it works, it's not registering, right? And so you kind of can't take, for the lack of better terms, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight.
There you go.
And so the larger locations, like the hospitals and the large bars or the large colleges, you want the big kiosks. And
So
so it costs a little bit more.
let's talk about the anchor then. What would be a good anchor size, and we know the placement.
Yeah. So for hospitals, I have found that our E24 that has a 21-inch screen with a 24 battery capacity, that's all you need.
Good.
That's all you need. And those are also great for the hotels that we're partnered with and we're placing it around amusement parks. All you need, right? And so they can range between retail, wholesale and retail. I mean, you're looking at between 24 to a little over $3,100, right? In that range. Now, our 48 battery kiosk that has a 43-inch screen, those are a bigger presence,
Is
right?
that what you have behind you?
Yes, that's exactly right. This is a 48. It's got a 43-inch screen. I feel like I'm on Price is Right.
There you go.
Those have been successful at universities. And without getting into too much detail about universities, I will say this, and if any operator out there listening have relationships with universities and colleges, get a hold of me. I mean, the software,
Hurry up, hurry up.
yeah, the software capability that we have built specifically for university. I mean, literally when we started, we began with the end in mind, and that end in mind were colleges and universities, taking advantage of the fact that there are 20, 30, 40,000 students in a small area, right? And so these kiosks are great for that. Add that to our software capability. There's a tremendous opportunity that no other company in the world offers. And that's what, I like to kind of hang my hat on. I don't want to boast too much, but, that's something that I'm very excited about.
So I guess just recapping and to make sure that we understand, because we will deal with a lot of bars, amusement parks, places where people are staying. Before we commit into buying hardware, we should reach out to you and say, "Hey, this is what we got. What size will you recommend?" And then why, of course.
Exactly. It's not like, it's not a true science, but there's enough data where I will be very honest and say, hey, you're doing overkill, right? You're bringing a gun to a knife fight, but then sometimes you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, and there's just that correct balance that you just gotta know. And I will, like I said, I'm gonna be honest with you, because I don't want people to be unsuccessful, because if they're unsuccessful, they're never gonna want to proceed. But I will say, with any kind of ATMs that you are currently working with, if a location doesn't do well, you don't get frustrated, and you don't,
Out the door.
yeah, you take it and you move it to another location, right? But my goal is that, having that conversation with the operator, knowing the kind of locations that they're working with, I can, for the most part, with certainty, tell you, A, this isn't going to work, or B, this is about how much you're going to generate in current stage of this tech space, right? I can't stress enough that we are literally at the beginning of this tech space. It's like going back 30 years ago when ATM started becoming, going everywhere. It, we're that's where we are with this tech space. We're at the beginning part of the next 30 years for this technology. So I can tell you right now, based on the last few years of data, where you're going to be successful and where you're going to have a slower growth rate. But that's not to say that you should give up that location, because you know what? That location can give you huge returns down the road. I can just tell you right now, though, there are certain locations that people come to me with, and I said, get it in there. If you don't get it in there, give me that relationship. I will pay you a fee for that referral fee for giving me that location, and I'll put it in there. And then the one thing that I will also add is that One of the things that I like to do with my operator partners is that we as Escargo, we're constantly going out there and looking for places to put our technology, right? We're building relationships, and that's what most of our time is spent. Well, when a large hospital group or when some entity reaches out and says, "Hey, we want this technology at our location," what we like to do is instead of us managing that, because it could be 100 miles away or it could be 1,000 miles away, and it just doesn't make sense because it the return time for dealing with any issues, putting in more batteries, any kind of concerns, it's easier for me to work with somebody that's local and can be my
Yeah.
boots on the ground. So, Franco, if I had a college or a hospital or whatever come up in your area, the first thing I'm going to do is say, "Hey, Franco, I know you. We're already doing business with you. I've got this great location. Go ahead. If you're interested, this is a kiosk that I think would do well. This is a revenue share, and then you have first dibs at it. If you don't want it, no problem. I'll just go into the next person on
Nice.
my Rolodex for that area." So that's the other thing about this is that I will help my operators grow their portfolio if they help me grow mine. Right, by looking into your portfolio and saying, "Well, I've got 100 of these ATMs out there, but maybe I have 10% of them, 5% of them that are in locations that I think they would do well. Great, let's move forward with it." And then when I get a deal in your area, I'm going to call you up and say, "I've got this exciting opportunity. Do you want it? Yes? No?" And then we go from there.
Good. So again, to recap and to get into numbers a little bit more, not to get too deep on it, but what are we charging a customer? Are we charging them per hour, per 30-minute slots, per day? What do you recommend?
So that's where I was kind of mentioning that's so unique about Escargo's software is that typically this technology, the software has been written so that way almost every company offers it by the hour, right? That's the base model, and some of them will also offer like a daily rate. Well, that's great, but what if there was an ability to go beyond that and give other options, like when you're, let's say, on a cruise ship, right? You're on a 5-day cruise ship. You can buy a 5-day package for something, right? Whether it's a drink package, whether it's um, whatever, right? Well, with our software, we can have it so that way if you're at a ski resort or if you're on a cruise ship, and typically they're 3 or 5 day trips, we can have it so that way, you know what, instead of just charging by the hour or charging by the day. Frankly, if you said to me, "Nick, I have a ski resort here in Colorado, and I want to put this kiosk in there, and I want to offer people an ability to rent by not just by the day or an hour, but let's say in 3 days, right? Most people are there for 3 days. Give them a 3-day package
Oh,
where they
nice.
have unlimited rentals and just charge them 14.99, 24.99, whatever. I mean, it's your business, right? I only input on the back end the pricing that you want, but that's the kind of capabilities that we have. And then just to take it to the next level as far as how the revenue share works is that the other unique thing that we're doing, because we're, again, I keep pounding this, is that we are at the frontier stage of this tech space. And Escargo, we're, becoming one of the largest brands. We're becoming very well known, and we want to reward our early adopters by giving them revenue share that no other company can offer, which is typically most companies offer a 70-30 revenue split after all the fees are taken into consideration, right? So it can be arbitrary sometimes and say, okay, a $3 transaction, well, the fees that go with it is going to be 15%, 20%, whatever. And then you get your 70%, right? So just to kind of, and, and then with Escargo, right now, the way we do it is you get 70%, we get 30%, and that's off of gross. And that 30% for us literally just covers, I hate to say it, it literally just covers our credit card payment processing fees, our SMS text fees, because people get a text when they rent and return a battery, and then also the monthly 4G fees, right? We pay for all of that. And then anytime you run low on batteries, we cover that cost as well, shipping it out to you. So it's truly, when you buy the kiosk, that really should be your last expense for that. Now, just to kind of quantify what that 70/30 from other companies looks like from their angle and ours, is that let's use a $3 transaction, right? With us, if you get 70% of that on the gross, you're getting $2.10 flat out. You know what you're getting, right? Whereas
Yes.
other companies where they all have it so that it's after the fees, what happens is that $3 can now, after your fees, you're looking closer to $1.50 to $1.55. I've done the math
So
on
more like 50%.
yeah, I mean, you said it, I didn't, Franco. But the idea is like we want to be so upfront with our fees, and then on top of that, we add taxes to whatever transaction, and you get 100% of that. So that way, when you file your income, sales tax, all that stuff, you get all of that, and you just need to pay for that part, right? Now, I will say this: down the road, this 70/30 gross revenue split isn't always going to be there, right? But we are so excited about our technology. We're confident in our technology, and we know that we offer the best software and best hardware. We want to offer the best revenue split, right? And then down the road, maybe we'll adjust it a little bit. But right now, um, we're literally just doing all the back end work for you for pretty much nothing. You keep all of the revenue.
That's excellent. Um, how do we get started?
Yes.
Two more
So
questions. This is the one we're almost hitting the timelines that we like to hit. So
yeah.
how do we get started?
Yes. So before we go, I wanted to kind of go over the numbers just to so people can see what we're doing in some of our locations. But they can just email me. It's nick@myescargo.com. I don't know if there's a way for you to have that in the chat or.
I will ask my editor to put it in there.
Okay, great. Yeah, so they can just email me, nick@myescargo.com, and or you know what, have my phone number. My direct phone number is 703-400-2145. I am always open and available to my operator partners. Like they will call me, text me at any time of the day and night, and I'm always responding. And that's just how I operate. So yeah, so when reach out to me, have that conversation, and let's talk about some of the locations that you currently have, some of the current locations that you might be able to get into, and look at and discuss, what the costs are, what size kiosks that they need. Once they decide on how they want to proceed, we'll just invoice them. They pay the invoice, and we can usually have it shipped out within 24 business hours from our warehouse, and more than likely you'll have it in within 3 to 5 days of payment.
It's excellent.
Yeah. But before, I've been talking up this whole technology, and for many of your listeners, they're probably thinking, well, it sounds good, but proof is in the pudding, right?
There
So,
you go.
so just kind of wanted to break down one of my high performing hospitals. So back in May 8th of last year, what we did was we placed it in a medium sized hospital, and for the 12-month period, we saw a revenue of just over $4,100. Now,
For an E24.
for the E24, correct?
And the E24 ranges, let's say $3,000, just to make it simple,
Yeah.
as of March 2026.
Yes, exactly. And we've got a couple different models, and so that's why I was kind of being a little vague with the price range and stuff, based on the two different models that we have. But yes, we retail between 29 to 3,200. Now, in the first year, what we saw for this specific hospital that I was allowed to share, and also that's the other thing, is that I don't share any data with people that I'm not given permission to. So I'm sharing this data because I was given permission. So in the first 12 months, it generated $4,100.
So it more than paid it within a year.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly did. Now, here's the thing. This is just one kiosk in the emergency room. They also purchased 2 of the E8s and put it into the other 2 different parts of the hospital, and that doesn't show what those did on this one. I'm just doing the emergency room.
One
right?
unit.
Now, in the second year, we're going in on 10 months. As of this date, this is actually, let's see, March, April, May. So this was actually at 9 months right here that's done just under 2,600, on pace to do about 3,500 for the second year. Now you're saying, well, wait a second, Nick, why? What was the decrease in the reasoning behind the revenue drop? Well, it's not really that it was a revenue drop. Was that in the first 6 months, what we did was we had something called auto renew on our um, on this, when they went and paid, because the software capability we have allows them to constantly renew it, right? Well, we decided to take that off because some people didn't realize they were signing up for that. And so what we're doing is we're going through a whole process of making sure that there's a pop-up banner that comes out and say, hey, user, this is going to be reoccurring unless you stop it. So until then, what we did was we dropped it. So if we took out that um, auto renew revenue, you're right back down to that 3,500 mark, which is saying, again, it's consistently doing about $3,500 a year. Now, again, add the other two locations, the little E8 batteries that we've got there. This location, you can add about another 2,000 in that course of the 2 years. Not that much, but when you take into consideration the cost of the E8,
Oh yeah,
which is retails for 700, again, you've made your money back under that first year.
yeah. And then if we're talking about 50 units or 100 units or 1,000 units,
Yeah. I,
then Nick becomes on the favorites on the phone.
yeah,
So yeah,
and I'm telling you, I am, my team and I are going after the hospital locations as hard as anybody, right? Because we know the value of them. And, if I get them before you or the other operators, you're going to be paying a little bit of a premium for us going and finding it, right? So if you can
yeah,
get to them before we do, by all means. But right now, again, we're going out there finding locations and then finding local operators to own and operate them themselves. So again, we're always going to help grow your portfolio as long as you're helping us to grow ours. So I wanted to go over a couple hotels that we have around the amusement park, right? These are two of our better performing hotels. Again, it's just in the lobby. One of them is not so much in the lobby. One of the things that I will always tell people is that this needs to be seen, right? I actually have a data that I'm not going to share with you, but we put it into one casino, and they had one of the E24s in the hallway. After you leave the hotel section and then you go to the casino side, there's a hallway. Well, that thing was generating maybe $100 a month. Terrible. Well, they moved it 30 feet. Finally, after some, begging, we asked them to move it over by the elevator lobby. You know what happened? As of the last week of November, what we saw was that data skyrocketed up to consistent $1,200 to $1,300 a month.
wow,
A
wow,
month, all because it was placed by the elevator and vestibule. And let me tell you why that's important. Because after they check in and they're heading towards the elevator, they see that kiosk. When they see that kiosk for the first time, they don't understand what they're seeing. They don't care. They're so honed in on going upstairs, relaxing. Right? Go up,
yeah,
they drop off their bags, they come down. That's really the first time they're going to see the kiosk. Right? They go out, have dinner, whatever. They come back in. That third time is really the impression where they understand what it is. And so the next morning when they come back down, that's when they see it. And once they see it and they use it over and over. And that's the data that I have, is that I'll see a phone number showing that it rented at this location one day, and then the next day around the same time, that same person rents again for the day. And then 2 minutes later, another rental occurs with the same area code, which tells me that it's the significant other or somebody in that group is renting a battery because they enjoyed it that much. Now, quickly again, this hotel in the first year, it did just over 26. It did about 2,600. Second year, 3,200. This one did 2,800, and then 2,300. It hasn't been quite a full year, but close enough. So we're ranging between, if you average it out, this first hotel, you're looking at closer to 2,800, and this one, you're looking at 2,500 per.
so $200 a month, two
Yeah,
hundred
and
dollars
these
a
are not
month.
big hotels, by the way. These are just maybe 100 to 120 rooms. They're not anything fancy. They're just kind of like independently owned franchise hotels. So, um,
That's great. That's great because as an ATM operator, we're looking for an average of 150, 200 bucks a month per location, and then if we're able to add this to it, now we're talking about $400 a month. And
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Right. And then, to kind of like finish it off, the hotel. So not around an amusement park, but in an area where, obviously people are coming there as tourists, right? So we recently partnered up with an operator out of New York City, and he put a kiosk in the last week of November. It was right around Thanksgiving time, right? So it did, I think, just bare minimum, $52, whatever. The month of December, we saw a spike in usage to about $440 just for the month of December. Now, January and February, if you know anything about New York City, it's nothing but snow and ice. No one's doing anything. So what we saw was a modest revenue here of a little over $200 in January. As of middle of February, when this deck was created, it had done about 130. So if you were to extrapolate the other 2 weeks out, you're closer to about 250. However, if we're talking about the slowest months of the year, still doing 200 a month, I'm excited to see what's going to happen when April through November, when New York City is crazy busy, how much that's going to generate. I mean, if we can, multiply the month of December by, let's say, 8, 9 months out of the year, that's going to be busy and the weather's going to be nice for New York, we're closer to like $3,600 to $4,000 in the first year for this hotel.
that's excellent.
Yeah, and then that's gross revenue, obviously.
And are we calling these average locations or are we calling these unicorns?
Well, that's this. I would say is your average for a busy New York City. That's why I'm trying to go after all the New York
Yeah,
City hotels right now. Maybe I'm giving away too much of my game plan, and other people are going to start stealing my ideas and stuff. But my busiest bar, I think I can kind of classify that as more of a unicorn, right? Nightclubs can do $600 to $1,000 a month, but for the typical bar and restaurants, you're going to see on average, I would say $30 to $50 for an E8, one of the small countertop ones. For hospitals, you know, I think you would see an average of anywhere between $200 to $400 a month for a hotel. So I think we can split the baby in half and just say you should see about $300 a month for a typical decent sized hospital.
good. Nick, I wanted to keep this podcast under 40 minutes. We are at the 47 minute.
Woo,
I
I
think
talk
you
too
have
much. I'm sorry. I talk too much.
no. You given us a lot of value. I think there is so much information that is very valuable, and especially the numbers, like you said. Uh, if we look at the numbers, it's something that it can be a great add-on.
Hmm.
So I appreciate it. I hope that people can get a hold of you and see the value of your product. I am a customer of yours. I'm not hitting those numbers. I'm hitting more of the lower numbers because they're not at the right place.
That's right.
But I think we're going to find them. I think I'm heading to the mountains. I'm heading to the to the colleges that are around and probably create networks
And
there.
I'll tell you what, the ski resorts that we're working with right now, amazing. And I
Yeah.
know of an operator who has a lot of ATMs in the ski space, and he never jumped on it. And I'm like, other people are taking them over, and you're missing out on a location that is just killing it right now from the data that I have.
But hey, Colorado and Wyoming, I think it will be a great place to go out and go at it. So I
Sounds good.
appreciate it, Nick. Last question, just to, I asked this to a lot of the podcasters. What do you define as success, and how do you give that to others?
Success for this tech space or in general?
For Nick,
For Nick, um, I'm very hard on myself, and my problem is that if you've ever read the book Seven Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey, one of the things that has always resonated with me is begin with the end in mind, right? And so for me, I have this crazy dream that I always created for the end goal, and I'm constantly striving towards it. So I don't know if I can quite define what success for me is, but if I can get anywhere close to that, or even with this company, if I can get close to where have envisioned, which is super exciting, even if I can get 50% there, I will have found success. But right now, my success for this company is that we have built and continue to improve our software to be the best in the market. Our hardware is already there. And now it's just building more and more relationships. So for me, that's my success.
That's excellent. Nick, I appreciate it. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, Franco, for your time.